Members, good morning. It's the appointed time and we have a quorum. I call the meeting to order. We have 2 hours. This meeting will end at 1 o'clock. Let me welcome the FS, the DFS, the Secretary for the Bureau, as well as their team. Members who would like to ask questions, please press the request to speak button. I will first ask the Financial Secretary to make his opening remarks. FS, you are very popular indeed. There are 49 members waiting to ask you questions. Financial Secretary, please. Members, please be quiet. FS. Good morning, everyone. I thank you all for taking time out from your busy schedule to listen to our presentation on the budget, and I thank you all for your valuable comments. This is the first budget of the new government. This is also the first budget after we have left the epidemic behind. Yesterday, I delivered my budget in the LegCo. As members have heard about the economic situation last year and our forecast this year, I'm not going to repeat. The theme of the budget is leaping forward steadily together we bolster prosperity under our new vision. Given the current economic situation, I think that the focus of the budget is not just to protect employment and alleviate livelihood plight. We also have to pursue economic development. As President Xi said, that the coming 5 years is a crucial time for Hong Kong's new journey. In the short run, our work is mainly to consolidate the economic recovery. That's why in the budget, you'll find different aspects on this area. In the first place, wherever possible, we will provide support to SMEs as well as to the general public. We're talking about $59 billion amongst the new measures in the budget. This accounts for 80%. In the short run, apart from the relief measures, we would also like to organize major events and activities. In the past 3 years, we have somewhat been isolated from the outside world. We'd like to make use of these mega events to attract business visitors and pleasure visitors. These events will attract big spenders, and they are a group that is viewed by many different countries. Our work also focuses on the internal environment. We would like families to go out, participate in these events, and spend a good time. So these are our various events. I would like to leave more time for members to ask questions, so I'm not going to list out these activities. In terms of the economy, as you can see that we have spent quite a lot of ink on this. Under the 14th five-year plan, our country has positioned Hong Kong as the 8 new centers. In the budget, we have set out our vision in the mid and long term. We would like to start a discussion so that we will find a good direction for moving forward. I have considered that over the years we have had many success stories. We have been the pride of our people, but we would like to focus on the development of the 8 industries, and currently we see some barriers of for our youngsters. So we have to pursue high quality development, one of which is the use of innovation and technology. And we think that we are able to step up our drive and pace in this regard. First is to make use is the digital economy. That is the direction pursued by our country and the rest of the world. This has completely changed the business model of many different areas. These are the fundamentals. If it's done well, it's just like a good infrastructure of transport. It will give life to many different areas. Apart from helping enterprises to digitalize, there are also some new areas, say for example Web3. We think that Web3 is the new trend. This entails many advantages. Of course, regarding some other areas like virtual assets, there are pitfalls. So we need to be responsible. We need to regulate well and put in place a sound regulatory framework. There is also something new put forward in the budget, which is the INT Center as well as an international green financial center. The scale of green bond, the variety involved, covering different tenure, different denominations, we are the forerunner. Regarding technology and green startups, we see dozens of them in the Science Park. There is work done in different areas, but they are not consolidated. There is no other place where there is a positioning of combining technology and green finance. We do think we enjoy an advantage in this realm. If we have the determination and with our fundamentals and our position as an international city, we will be able to do more. There is plenty of potential here. In 2021, according to some statistics, the market scale is $35.5 billion US dollars, and in 2030, the capitalization of this industry is 410 billion US dollars, with a potential to grow by 30%. Well, apart from the 8 centers, and there are also areas we have been leading. That is the International Financial Center. In some industries, you see that we mention about innovation and technology a lot. Over the past few years, we have devoted about over $100 billion in it. We now have created an ecosystem. This is a good start. We have the one country, two systems principle, and given our positioning in the international community, we enjoy an advantage in the attraction of talents. But still, there is a gap between results. We don't just have to create an ecosystem. We have to make sure that we are able to create industry clusters and good employment opportunities. That will be the first step towards success. That's why in this regard we have put a lot of resources into it. We have the supercomputing center. We plan to have the supercomputing center. Without this center, we will not be able to go as far regarding artificial intelligence. Apart from that, there is the microelectronics. We plan for the microelectronics research institute, research and development institute. We have the support of our country. In the 14th five-year plan, there is a positioning in this regard, that is in life and health science and technology. We have already started our work. We have the Inno Hong Kong platform in the science park. We will also put this platform in the Lok Ma Chau River Loop. We will cooperate with the mainland. If data can cross the border and used in specific areas, they can be used in life and healthcare technology. This will be conducive to the development of new drugs. There is huge potential. And that's why we have spent more coverage on this. And there will be resources given to the cyberport to support startups. Well, these are the examples. I use them to tell you that policy bureaus have spent quite a lot of efforts to find solutions for higher pace development towards high quality development. We have trade leaders here, and I will be happy to listen to views. And that's all for my opening remark. Thank you, FS. Now the floor is open for members to ask questions. To allow more members to ask questions, I will allow 4 minutes for each members. That is to include the answer and the question. From experience of previous years, that we were only able to allow 26 to 27 members to ask questions. I will read out the first 26 members. Tommy Zhang, Eunice Young, Michael Tien, Sunny Tan, Benson Look, Stephen Ho, Charman Kwong, Elizabeth Kwok, Tanka Pew, Chen Siu Hong, Michael Look, Wendy Hong, Ngaman Yu, Frankie Yik, Reverend Kun, Kong Yok Fun, Lee Chen Kang, Kenneth Lau, Chen Kim Po, Tik Chi Yun, Chen Mang Pen, Rock Chen, Chen Yut Ming. I will ask the Secretariat to give you a list of members allowed to ask questions. We'll start with Mr. Tommy Cheung. Thank you. I think, early bird will get the worm. When I was listening to the FS budget, I was a bit concerned about the response from my sector. I have to manage expectations. Previously, we had water charges waivers and sewage charge waivers, but they are absent. However, people I met yesterday all had a good word to say about the budget. No one complained about the reduction in goodies. These goodies were not just given to us during the epidemic. Back in the time with the Black Clot violence, you were aware of the plight faced by our sector, and you offer waivers of license fees and rents. So I would like to thank you, and I would like to do that on behalf of my sector. I only want to say about a couple of things. Paragraph 33 in relation to the giving out of air tickets by the airport authority. I hope that these tickets are not just given to visitors from overseas. What about visitors from the mainland who have to fly to come to Hong Kong from, say, Beijing, Inner Mongolia. I hope that some tickets will be given to them as a welcome gift. My main point is in paragraph 35, Happy Hong Kong campaign. When consumption voucher was first floated, I went with you to Aberdeen. I didn't expect your popularity to be so high. Everyone wanted a photo taken with you. And at the blink of an eye is now a few years. I look forward to going to the gourmet marketplace with you. I don't know whether you would do it, when you will do it, and what are the details. I have approached the two bureaus in charge of this. Well, I think you need to give time for the FS to answer. Yes, I will. I told the bureau that I'm interested and I would like to participate. Now we'll hear from the FS.
Yes, please be concise. Thank you very much, Tommy Cheung, for his suggestion and his offer to help. Now, because of our fiscal position, our support for enterprises has reduced because we are on the road of recovery. So I apologize for not repeating those incentives or initiatives I offered in the past. And as for the gourmet marketplace, the Home and Youth Affairs Bureau will coordinate the events. Hopefully the first event can be held in May or April by means of good food. We want all to participate and have fun. We will ask for Mr. Zheng's help for sure. Mr. Eunice Yong. Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy with the budget. In terms of child allowance, there's an increase from 120 to 130,000. I wanted to have a third child, but then with an additional $10,000 only is a bit difficult for me. Now, the New People's Party is proposing a progressive rate, so another $20,000 for one more child and the $30,000 for yet another. That will help to boost birth rate in Hong Kong and lessen financial burden on families. I think this should be a long-term support. So you should not just offer a lump sum at the start. Perhaps some relief in the initial stage. We understand that there are different reasons for child raising, family raising, housing, education, and fees for nurturing a child are all factors to be considered. So please consider raising progressively the basic child allowance and the one for additional child. I'm pleased to see that the FS has described the budget as a leaping forward steadily. So let's stay steady. And then in terms of the child allowance rates and other tax allowance rates, I hope they can be increased. Now, the FS understand that our population is aging and our birth rate is low. And so you have devoted to the area of providing support for elderly persons at home and to continue employ elderly persons. While you support carers, you should also support employees of carers. Some of us have employed foreign domestic helpers. Please give us some subsidy. It is impossible for elderly persons to take care of themselves at home. Neither can their elderly spouses. So if we support people to age at home with the help of foreign domestic helpers, we give them some support. This will be helping a lot of family members because adult children are under pressure in taking care of their elderly parents and would like to see our burden relieved. I'm pleased to see that the FS has taken into account a number of factors and also smart government. You have devoted quite a lot of measures to that. You have to reserve time for the FS to reply. Yes. And AI, I hope we can promote smart government and smart living. We can enhance the government's modernization in governance, and this is also what I've been asking for. FS, thank you. Yes, I've heard the valuable comments from members on child allowance, so we have adjusted it appropriately. Now we've considered other tax allowances. We haven't adjusted it because of our financial position, because a single move can have implications. For instance, a tax rebate of 100% subject to $6,000 ceiling against $10,000 in the past, that would mean a lot of revenue forgone. So there are considerations. As for expenses in childcare and elderly persons, I do sympathize because I have experience in this area. Now, what about employment of local domestic helpers, not just foreign domestic helpers and part-time helpers? We have to be thorough. Otherwise, a measure may not be a piece of good news to everyone. Mr. Michael Tan, I'm here. I'm on the right-hand side. Good morning, Michael. The short-term relief measures. Now, the roundtable has made suggestions to you, and you've helped everyone. Now, you have tax rebate and also half month of Social Security payments, etc., and also consumption voucher $5,000. But for structural, long-term measures, now you're going to spend $560 million to attract tourism, so that is too little. And also YAMO reclamation for tourism mega events. We want to have an international race course for motor cars. Now, if you can have this infrastructure, they can replace many minor tinkering with the system. You still talk about Hong Kong Disneyland, which is old already. If you do not have new international mega events, how can we be attractive? And in every year's budget, now apart from goodies we all care for and highlights of the year, I think the most important thing is your fiscal management policy. Now you talk about the GDP. I expect that in 27-28 our fiscal position is going to be stable. I think you can't really be accurate in your forecast. In recent land sale exercise, it was aborted. So I'm not as optimistic as you are. Like many experts, I hope that you can start studying of our tax structure. You set up a tax study working group a long time ago, and in para 195, you said that there must be sufficient discussion in the community before you can make a decision. Now, if you don't even start the discussion, how can there be ample discussion? On the one hand, you said that our narrow tax base is good enough, and then you dissolve the working group. And then in the coming few years, you're going to issue $300 billion of bonds. So you'd rather issue government bonds instead of reforming our tax structure. This is already 6th year in your office as the FS. I think this is a good time for you to start this study. I think this is an important year for your position as the financial secretary in Hong Kong. Thank you. Mr. Michael Tian, for your question. As regards the international motor car racing course, it depends on our land supply. Now, for near-shore reclamation, it's true that there are a few possible sites, Longkutan and Penny's Bay. For Penny's Bay's reclamation, the proposal was to use it for non-residential purpose, and there is room for further exploration. As for the purpose right now, we will focus on the Khao Yi Chao artificial island reclamation. So we think about Sunny Bay in the future. And as for reform our tax structure, we need to have the right time to start the discussion. We have been a few years of the epidemic. We were under stress and hardship. If we start this discussion right now, that may trouble society, and we are using various ways and means, and we should make good use of our fiscal reserves to stabilize the situation and people's confidence. Mr. Sunny Tan, thank you. The budget has responded to the suggestions from BPA and also the textile industry. You're providing support for SMEs for a revival. We are grateful to that. For BPA, in particular, Mr. Jeffrey Lam from Alliance has this question for you. Yesterday, there was explanation by government officials, the capital investment entrance scheme to be launched. Now, the investment cannot be for property development. What about buying a unit for business, for retail, and for capital injection into the company? Can that be allowed? And as for the business sector, the government has got measures to help our traditional industries, including the textile and garment industry. Now, we have already got the Hong Kong Innovation and Technology Development Blueprint. Is it a high time for us to readjust and fine-tune our traditional industries so that our emerging industries and traditional industries can work together, collaborate, and then we can have multifaceted development so that we can commercialize our R&D outcome. And as for the Bud Fund, I'm grateful to the administration for heeding my views on removing the various restrictions under the fund, and now you have Bud Easy. I'd like to have details of the new proposal. I am pleased to see that you are injecting another $500 million on the Create Smart scheme so that garment and textile and also the art sector and also the creative industries can work together to further promote and tell good stories of Hong Kong. Now for the capital investment entrance scheme, now the threshold will be much higher. We want to attract people with some financial strength, and many of them will be in the business sector so that they can promote our business development as well. We would require part of the investment to be devoted to industries we'd like to promote. For instance, the I&T industry and also sectors with a long horizon of investment that may incur risks as well. Now, people come as investment immigrants. It's okay for them to buy property and to start their own business, but when they buy properties, they will not be counted towards the amount of investment they are required to make. Years ago, we suspended the scheme, a similar scheme. Back then, $10 million is the threshold. it could be used in buying property and taking stock of the experience. We find that it may not be the best approach. I agree that there can be crossover of different industries together with technology as well. For instance, textile is a traditional industry in Hong Kong. Together with fashion, it can be a good way of development. We're happy to explore with the sector and experts. And expertise comes from the industry itself. If you have any new ideas, we're happy to discuss with you.
I think the rest of the questions will have to be follow up on other occasions. Mr. Benson, look. Good morning. When we're on the way to recovery and normalcy, general public and the commerce and industry sector would like to get some money in their pocket. The consumption voucher is the energy bar before you pick up your pace in a marathon. And we do understand that there is financial pressure faced by the SAR government. Well, you have not increased our salaries tax. The profits tax rate remains the same. So the special football betting duty is an option. $2.4 billion, is that a lot a year? No. If you divide it by the population, 7.33 million, so each person is about $327. Well, there is a saying in the community that the jockey club will lower the odds. But that is not realistic because the jockey club runs their betting industry like a business. So if they want to pay for the special betting duty, they will have to find new source of income. But of course, I don't encourage betting industry to make that profit in the local community. But will you consider asking the jockey club to pool the bets from the rest of the world? Because the pool will attract punters from other places, so they can get more revenue without encouraging people to gamble here. And in another way, this is also a way to publicize Hong Kong. For the local betting industry, to the jockey club, it is a little quaffer. But of course, you should not kill the goose to get the egg. You should keep the goose happy and healthy so that there will continue to be eggs coming. But what about other sports, say for example, basketball for betting? FS. As to whether the jockey club can or will publicize to the rest of the world to attract a larger betting pool from punters outside Hong Kong, that is for them to decide as a business. Regarding other types of bets, it's down to whether we want to encourage betting in the community. If we are to go ahead, we do need consensus from the community. We don't really want to encourage youngsters to bet or to gamble. Next, Mr. Stephen Ho. I'm the first person to speak from the DAB. I need to say this. The DAB is very satisfied from reading the press release. The FS said that they need to decide what to do, judging from the revenues they have. Of course, you can't please everyone. Some will complain about having too much, and some from giving too much, and some will complain about receiving too little. But anyway, we need to look forward. The budget has taken on board the views of the DAB, say for example, funding to mega events, the capital investment entrance scheme, and support to the travel agencies. Of course, in other areas, the funds can be used in a more flexible way. With resumption of normalcy, workers in certain trades will need the fund to update their tools, otherwise they will be unemployed. In the past 2 to 3 months, a couple of fishing vessels have been sunk because they are unable to stay afloat financially because they can't get funding or help because it's not the moratorium yet. Well, after the 20th National for consultation, the same reminder, yes. Well, it will be very difficult to ask them to participate in consultations if you don't have any subsidies or any incentives for them. FS. Some industries or trades will need capital to expand on their way to revival. For specific industries, say transport, travel agencies, we have launched full guaranteed loans to help with their cash flow. As to whether the agricultural and fisheries industry can benefit from similar schemes, we will look into it. When it comes to the running of a business, it's better for the business sector to use their own capital. For fishermen, they are unable to get the subsidy because there is no such thing as a business certificate. This is only a technical issue. It can be overcome. Well, if you tell me that they have had no business in the past 3 years, how can they take out a loan? Well, there are ways. The formulation of a blueprint is undertaken by the Environment and Ecology Bureau. Funding can be used for research for the sector. We have already done a lot regarding removal of barriers. If there is more we can do, certainly we will consider it. Mr. Chairman Kwong, thank you. FS, the magnitude and amount of goodies has been reduced. However, we see how active and pragmatic you have been. You have made the business environment better. So you focus on developing for the future, and in this way help the plights we are in. We need manpower for the development of the economy. We have an aging population, we have an exodus of population, and there is also a mismatch of our labor force. But there is this issue. DSE candidates, it has dwindled to 43,000 from 80,000. We have developed different industries, the innovation and technology, but we can't use only artificial intelligence. Looking at other advanced economies and our policies on population, on encouragement to people to have more children, we are a bit lackluster. The basic child allowance has only been increased from 120,000 to 130,000. On education, there is little mention in the budget. Can you do more? It is very important to help increase our population. And there is the capital investment entrance scheme. It's good that you exclude investment on property. We need to protect the property market, but there is a news coverage saying that it does not include mainlanders. Well, but mainlanders have money. Why don't you give them quotas? For Dubai, London, Singapore, they all want to recruit elite Chinese people, and you need to move ahead with the times. Thank you. Evans. Thank you, Mr. Chow. Spending on education, we spend about over 100 billion. It accounts for about 10 to 20% in our expenditure. During the consultation sessions, there are views saying that the student population has been reducing, so the number of cohorts reduce as well. So we need to spend less on education. However, we have kept our efforts on education expenditure. The degree of reduction is rather small. So this will not hinder our sustainable development. On the labor force, the Labor and Welfare Bureau is conducting population projection on manpower. When we have the findings, we will be in a better position to see what our manpower position is, to make plans. Well, of course, we work to groom local talent, but it takes time. In the short run, we need to import manpower. Relevant policy bureau have been following up on this. Ms. Elizabeth Quat, I strongly support the budget. I think it is pragmatic and is delivering results. There is strong support on INT. It's not just a leaping forward. I think it's going to be a sprint. But there are bottlenecks: land, manpower, and information or data. I've asked about land from the River Loop and Santin. When will the land be available? On manpower, how can we increase manpower for them to join this sector? For data, I asked the government to formulate a coordinating the Bureau for data. On the other hand, there is attraction of visitors and to improve our image. Please make good use of technology, to use it to provide better and more personalized experience for visitors. In relation to our capacity, previously we asked for subsidy or interest-free loan to the tourism industry. So how are you going to help with this industry to increase its receiving capacity? Well, there will be $100 million to support women. Perhaps for pregnant women of an older age, you need to give more help. The middle class said that they have been ignored. They feel that they are under tremendous pressure. Of course, there is an increased child allowance, but the parents' allowance still too low, and there is no tax deduction for expenditure on foreign domestic helpers. Well, there is a support hotline. It's good, but it's still inadequate. So to the middle age, to the middle class who have to support the children and the parents, I think you need to do more.
Can I defer to the Deputy Secretary to discuss land for innovation technology? I thank Ms. Elizabeth Quat. Well, the trend is excellent for development of INT in the northern metropolis. We have about 250 hectares of land for INT industry, and at the Loop, over 80 hectares. The first three blocks are being constructed, and they can be completed late next year, the earliest. And of course, we should maximize land use, and there is also expansion plan in the cyberport. FS. Now, because of our fiscal position, now we have seen fiscal deficit for 4 years in a row. Last year was over 240 billion. This year over 150 billion dollars. So we have to live within our means. We have just raised our basic child allowance and additional child allowance. For the rest, we have to wait a bit. And as for our tax rebates and also rates rebates, they are not so much as in the past, and we ask for your understanding for the same reason. Now, for the middle class, I've done some survey. Every year we have got measures for the middle class. For instance, the rental expenses can enjoy a tax reduction, and people who invest in the MPF and also annuity, they also enjoy some tax deductions that would mean over $20 billion forgone in government revenue. All in all, we like to take care of different groups in society, but then we really have to live within our means. Mr. Tang Ka-piu. Thank you, Chair. FS. The budget scores a very high mark, and I think you have really live up to the spirit of the 14th five-year plan and the report to the 20th National Congress. But you must be people-oriented. You should not develop for the sake of developing, and you should ensure that people can participate and can benefit, and meanwhile contribute their strengths. And we're grateful to you for accepting the FTU's suggestion so that you can adjust the ad valorem tax for stamp duty for housing from residential flats, and you've accepted our suggestion on consumption voucher schemes, and you've also provided tax rebates and also rate rebates. So you have taken care of different sectors. I think your projection of the future is on the gloomy side. I'm sure 2023 must be a better year than 2022 for Hong Kong. Well, in 2021, we had a surplus of $18 billion. For 2023, I'm sure the atmosphere in society is much better, and we have a normal travel between Hong Kong and the mainland and other places. So I'm confident that next year we will not see any deficit. There may be even a surplus. So I hope you can be more ambitious and then implement this people-oriented approach. We have criticism for you in terms of development of local manpower, human resources, and their upgrading. There is very little in the budget. Now you have new measures and good ideas for the economy and enterprises, but what about human resources? Women labor participation rate is still low. Now you're going to spend all $100 million on childcare services. That won't be enough for childcare, even if you spend the whole money on that. What about the unemployment rate of people aged between 15 and 29? They are over 70%. How come they cannot join the labor market? Now, even if they can have jobs, are they engaged in jobs related to the 8 important centers assigned to us by the country? Now, we have to promote employment. We have to ensure they get high quality jobs so that they can share the fruits of economic development and prosperity. FS, we are cautiously optimistic about 2023. For sure, it would be a better year than the last. However, very often our assessment has a time lag when it comes to the stock and property markets. In 2021, both markets were on an upward trend. In 2021, we had 75,000 transactions in the residential market, and the figure fell to 40,000 last year. So we have to look at the different elements and the impact on the economy and the employment situation will differ. Now, for 2023, our expected growth is in the region of 3.5 to 5.5%. I think that is appropriate. As for human resources, well, the budget is limited in in space or volume, and we have VPAT for our people to offer high quality jobs to our young people. We have to upgrade our industry structure so that we can have a diversity of jobs for young people of different aspirations to pursue their dreams. Some young people like arts performance and creative industries, so we have the measures to encourage their exchange in with their counterparts in the GBA, for instance. But then there was the epidemic, and that could not materialize. Support for women, we should not just unleash their labor potential. We like to alleviate the burden, whether we talk about care of elders at home and their children. Women are under tremendous pressure, so we have deployed $100 million in the budget to promote childcare services and for upgrading of women. And they can also take part in interest class they choose. Now, if we do it well, if we yield results, we are happy to deploy more resources to this area. Thank you, Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Thank you, FS. This is the first budget of the new term of government, and also the first after we have eased the epidemic and also reintroduced quarantine-free travel. I like the title, that is Leaping Forward Steadily, and together we boast prosperity under our new vision. The FS is being moderately liberal, and over 80% of the measures are for our people and SMEs. There are relief measures where the government is capable. It wants to take care of our people and to promote economic recovery. I think that deserves our praise. Now, when it comes to attraction of talents, you have introduced a new capital investment entrance scheme, and then applicants must invest in the local asset market, excluding property, that can help to prevent speculation in properties. Now, can the FS consider this? Encourage investors to invest in designated industries such as green finance, green technology, virtual assets, on INT industries, etc. Now, if they can invest in these areas, they can score extra marks in the vetting. And will you consider do this as well? When applicants invest in designated industries, they must employ a certain number of local employees to promote employment in Hong Kong. $30 million will be reserved for setting up the construction, testing, and R&D center, so that there can be testing and accreditation services. $30 million is just a small amount of money. And there is no mention of application of INT to improve industrial safety, and there is no mention of how you can address the manpower shortage. Will part of the money be used to encourage the sector to make good use of INT to reduce industrial accidents? Or further, can you even provide more money for the sector to do this? Now, on your views on the new capital investment entrance scheme, we have jotted that down. It will be considered by the relevant bureau. As for the construction or the Building Testing and Research Institute, now in the budget we have set aside hundreds of millions of dollars for the CIC Construction Industry Council, which is the platform for the construction sector. And there are centers established by CIC to explore various the application of various INT in the sector, and the resources involved is quite huge. So the money now here is just for testing. It's just to boost their efforts in this regard. Mr. Chen, when the FS addressed the question of manpower shortage in various industries in Hong Kong, this is particularly so in the construction sector. There was a projection by the CIC, and we cannot wait until the next policy address because the sector has severe manpower shortage that affects the progress of works and also site safety in particular. We need the middle-ranking people to monitor site safety. Now, the Labor and Welfare Bureau is doing a test or a projection of different sectors. Now, for the CIC, the manpower shortage in the construction sector is up to $10,000. 10,000 people. For instance, carers in residential care homes for the elderly. We are taking action for industries that have an acute and urgent need for manpower. We will press ahead in full steam to tackle the problem. Mr. Lok Chung Hong. Thank you, Chair. In terms of relief for the people and promoting economic development, there are bold measures in the budget. In the long run, the government has to increase revenue, sources of revenue, and we have to maintain our advantage of a low tax regime. And therefore, we support the government's idea to integrate a capable government and efficient market. So for the Hong Kong Investment Corporation Limited, hopefully there can be more aggressive investment strategies to boost revenue for us. This will also echo the views made by members in a relevant motion debate. Now for return, take the exchange fund. The return was 4.8%, and for the future fund, 9.8%. Long-term growth portfolio, internal rate of return 13.7%. That's quite handsome, and many members of the public envy that. Many people who are MPF account holders incurred great loss last year. They lost in both the stocks market, fund market, and in MPF. People would like to ride on the government's investment so that they can all have a sense of gain and a contentment, and they will develop a stronger sense of belongings to Hong Kong. And you're going to promote private equity funds. Can you have investment products packed to our long-term growth portfolio so that there can be fixed term of investment for January members of the public? And also for our silver bond, it offers an interest of 4%. Can we have this guaranteed return fund of 1% over inflation under our MPF schemes? Now, Chair, you are an expert in this area as well. Can the government promote products of this kind? So can you allow the community to ride on so that we can have similar investment choices?
FS. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Lok, for his question. We've been thinking about how to benefit the general public. That's why, after I have taken office, we have increased the scale of silver bond. Last year, the interest rate was 4%. So we want to provide an investment choice with a steady return. The MPF involves all employees in Hong Kong. It's their savings. We want to find investment products with a steady return. We have set out some goals, but it's very but it's not easy to reach these goals because the market is volatile. We need to think about if there is a shortfall, who is to foot the bill? If it's the use of public funds, we're talking about a sizable amount. We will apportion an amount for priority allocation to MPF funds from bond products, so that there will be participation from them. We will look into it, and I've already given directions to the MPF authority and the monetary authority to give us their advice. Next, Ms. Wendy Hong. Thank you. We have measures in the short run and in the long run. We have relief measures for the short run, and we have long-term commitments. I really appreciate that. You've talked a lot about our economy. The first question I asked you is digital economy. There are plenty of uncertainties in the world, but there is something that is certain: the development of a digital economy. There is a potential from our country. We have offshore operating center and also a data center. You talk about looking into an AI supercomputing center. I think this can integrate into data center. Whilst protecting national security, we can allow sensitive data to cross the border for application in R&D or innovation and technology. This will stimulate development. Well, we see data as a kind of currency. So for data transaction, it accounts for a higher and higher advantage, a higher percentage. According to our country, they say that the capitalization in this regard can reach $175 billion. And a lot of cities want to reposition themselves as data centers, but because of difficulties in data flow, they can't do it. Will you consider turning Hong Kong into a data transaction center so that Hong Kong will become a data hub? In relation to the Hong Kong Investment Corporation Limited, we have great expectations. It's something that's mentioned in the policy address. I was asked about the structure of the company, the investment objectives, and other areas. Will you be able to give me more information? FS. Digital economy is the major development trend. Of course, the positioning of Hong Kong will be one that faces the international community regarding data exchange. As to how much, that is the degree that we can connect it to the mainland, and how we can ensure security of data exchange is something that we do need to think about, because without security, we won't be able to move ahead. This is our vision. But this is something that the Digital Economy Development Committee will look into. We have already set up the board of the Hong Kong Investment Co-Investment Corporation Limited. There are familiar faces from the business sector. The intention of setting this company is that sometimes the government needs to be involved. So there is the Co-Investment Corporation Limited. These investment projects aims to attract enterprises. Of course, those with strategic importance will be approached. In relation to the GBA investment portfolio and INT and the $5 billion, they will all be covered. This is the starting point. As to how we can make better use of the co-investment investment corporation is something that we will be happy to talk to members about. Mr. Lok talked about investment products. Safe investment products for people to choose from is an area we will look into after we've started our work, but we have to move steadily. Dr. Ngaiman Yu, I have some questions. First, just now, the Financial Secretary talked about deductions. Will you look into the tax deductions for local helpers so that we will be able to see some results in the next budget? Well, for grassroots, because of insufficient childcare services, they have to employ foreign domestic helpers or local part-time helpers as well. In relation to gerontechnology, there is a fund, but most of the applicants are care homes. We would like individuals to be able to make the application. Say an elderly person can apply under the fund to get some money to have handrails installed. And there is the internship for university students. Now they can go to either to the mainland or overseas for internship. But if they want to do internship in Hong Kong, there is no subsidy. Will you consider adding a local internship scheme? We will look into tax deductions for foreign domestic helpers. We have to consider a number of factors, including the pressure on our finance. Gerontechnology is for care homes or organizations to apply. If we want to change it to include individuals, it's a different matter. We will have to look into it. Local university students, we encourage them to go to the GBA or go overseas. It's easier to find these internship opportunities with the help of the government. There are employment services in universities. They work with different institutes to offer internship. I think I'll leave it to the universities to manage these schemes. A follow-up. For local internship for university students, currently employers don't have the incentive to create internship posts. Well, there are plenty of opportunities overseas because with the subsidy, these organizations offer plenty of posts for internship. But for local ones, if there is no mandatory internship, then there is practically no internship opportunities locally for university students. Will you consider creating incentives for these posts to be created locally? We'll look into it. Next, Mr. Frankie Yik. FS, I understand that you have another deficit budget. Of course, there is a limited revenue, so you are unable to please everyone. On behalf of the logistics industry, I appreciate that you offer a rental fee concession to eligible tenants of government premises and short-term tenancies for 6 months. We asked for 75%, but you give us 50%. Still, we happily accept that. But there are disappointments. For the fuel subsidy, fuel accounts for a large part of the cost for the transport industry. It's just announced that for dedicated LPG stations, there is an increase in cost by 21%. They are disappointed because they don't get anything. In relation to land and sea transport across the border for passenger travel, you have a SME financing guarantee scheme. It's better than nothing because it will help with cash flow. But what about the interest rate? What is the term of repayment? I hope you will give us details, and I do hope that you will understand the plight our industry is in. In relation to cross-boundary passenger service, it means you have to actually carry passengers across the border. We're talking about public transport, say green minibuses carrying passengers across the border, and coaches of local travel agencies. Are they included? They ask me to forward their views to you today because they've been neglected. So please help them, just to offer to give them loans. Electric taxis. Last time, when there was an encouragement to LPG taxis, there was a direct subsidy from the government, 40,000 per taxi. But this time, you only offer them a guarantee loans. Well, that is still of some use. But what about the period of repayment? What about the interest rate? I heard that is 10 years. That is acceptable. But what about the interest rate? I hope that you will keep it as low as possible. And I heard from the radio phone-in this morning, well, it's 3 minutes. I do understand, but I have to make everything clear. You said that it can't be compared with your performance in the past 3 years. But please, make it clear to the industry, because we encounter a lot of difficulties in taking out loans. DFS, well, about the financing guarantee, yes, 10 years is long, and there will be more information from the Transport and Logistics Bureau. For operators of cross-boundary service with licenses of both sides, I think they will be covered. You'll have to wait for the Bureau to give you details.
Allow me to supplement. Our thinking is like this. If the government is to directly support the business sector with our own means, we do that. We do have that. Now, during the pandemic, there was some shock to the industry. So the government took money out of its pocket to support the industries to keep them afloat. Now, we are towards normalcy. I think it should be right for businessmen to bear the risk of their own business, and then they can also enjoy the outcome. So I'm not too keen on providing a fund for restarting after the epidemic. Rather, we provide SME financing guarantee scheme, and businessmen can do their own calculation, and if they think that business is viable, then they can take out a loan and do it. Now we are towards the road of normalcy, and we are in such a financial position. I think it is much better for the business sector to take out loans from the market. It's not really appropriate for the government to provide money directly. Mr. Reverend Peter Kuhn. Thank you. We understand it's not easy to be responsible for managing our public finances. Now, you're going to charge $2.4 billion from the Hong Kong Jockey Club from football betting duty. According to the press release from the Jockey Club, is not going to reduce its recurrent contribution to the charities trust. Now, we understand that this is the recurrent part, but what about the non-recurrent part? With less means, I'm afraid the efforts will be affected. Now, I'm not a woman. I have to say a few words for them because $100 million is not really sufficient for our women in society. Another part is about the harsh measures. I understand the government's dilemma. You are worried that you will trigger another round of property price hike. But we need a right time to withdraw those harsh measures. Some NGOs or companies have been saying that they are waiting for the right moment to buy properties, maybe for investment or for accommodation. They are waiting for the right opportunity, in particular local NGOs. I can understand the dilemma faced by the administration, but will you consider the right moment for removing the harsh measures? At least half, if not all, say 5%, because that may be a hindrance for attracting talents because they like to come to Hong Kong. I know you have this policy to refund the extra stamp duty to talents from overseas, but local NGOs and companies are paying more in stamp duty for property transaction. Mr. FS, thank you. Regarding the Jockey Club's contribution to charities, yes, that is noted. As for our resources for helping women in Hong Kong now, as I said, that is just a starting point. If it proves to be useful, we will for sure invest more. As for the harsh measures, Reverend Kuhn mentioned whether we will remove or cut the new residential stamp duty. Now, in 2013, that's the background of the introduction of the harsh measures. It was in October 2013. Now, we have the buyer's stamp duty to control buyers who were not Hong Kong residents. And then in those transactions, it was found that about 27%, and it was still rising, that people bought a second residential property because the demand outstripped the supply. It was difficult for prospective buyers who were first-time buyers if they did not have the financial means. So we introduced the special stamp duty. It proved to be useful for a while, and then gradually its effect went off because now this is because of the rate. Now it was first up to 2 million and then to 3 million, and then the highest stamp duty is only 4.7, and even double stamp duty was not strong enough. So we had no choice but to introduce the new residential stamp duty. If we remove that, we're really worried. After all, we have a lot of affluent people in Hong Kong, and they're people who worked very hard to save up for their homes. Given that supply is limited, we should always take care of those who are not homeowners yet. Mr. or Reverend Kuhn mentioned NGOs, in particular those who are eligible under Section 88. Now, if they have to serve the community, can they be waived of that special stamp duty? Perhaps that can be considered as a separate item. Ms. Doreen Kong. Thank you. I'm more concerned about the middle class and also the grassroots. Now, for increase in special football betting duty, while the Jockey Club pledged that regular contribution to the charities trust will not be reduced, but still money comes from the same purse. I think non-recurrent contribution will be lessened. Will NGOs receiving contributions from the Jockey Club be affected, and the grassroots will be affected? Now you are going to collect $12 billion of special football betting duty. I'd like to know how much of that will be spent for grassroots welfare measures. Now, it's been a few years since the regular activities of the Jockey Club, but as soon as we resume normalcy, you levy this special duty. Will that really be rather unkind and ungracious? And as for the rates rebate, you only introduce a 50% reduction, and you said that perhaps you are going to introduce a progressive tax rates, so those who may have to pay more. How can you encourage people who can afford it to buy properties and invest in Hong Kong? The last question is support for the middle age. Last year, on the same occasion, I put to you problems faced by the middle class. Now, their problems only increased over the last year. Again, this budget has little for the middle class. This morning, a phone-in member of the public gave you a case for a middle-class family with 2 kids. They can only get $10,000 or so of goodies from your budget. And there is this problem of a downward movement of the middle class. The middle class have nothing other than the residential property they live in. So, in fact, the middle class are in financial hardship. So how do you address poverty among the middle class and the fact that they are drifting down the social ladder? Thank you. Mr. Doreen Kong. Well, we're going to charge $2.5 million of special football betting duty from the Jockey Club. We have checked their accounts. I'm sure they can afford that. And if we review the annual accounts, and the pre-tax profits was always over this value. And then when the investment environment in 2021 was good, it made quite a windfall, a lot from their investment. And if you look at the reserves of Jockey Club, it's very high. So $2.4 billion per year, $12 billion in 5 years as a whole, that is totally affordable to the Jockey Club. Given the current social and economic situation, we have finally emerged from 3 years of epidemic. We are now on the road to recovery and normalcy. I think it is but right for the Jockey Club to give a little bit more, which is totally affordable to the club. And as for the progressive rates, how do you define equity? Now, I give $5,000 to everyone in Hong Kong, hopefully to revive the economy. Some criticize me for being unfair. I should not give the same amount to the rich, so everyone receives a flat rate. Is that the fairest arrangement? And for rates, I don't think that is the case. Our rationale is, after so many years, perhaps it is time to consider doing it in appropriate areas so that those who can should pay more. For instance, the property is of a higher value and the owner is more financially capable and therefore should pay more in rates. So, for instance, in some jurisdictions, they have a progressive rate for salaries tax or income tax. You pay more as you earn more. It's a similar rationale. I fully appreciate the pressure faced by the middle class. Where we can, we have tried to take care of them as far as possible. As I said, in many budgets, we have various measures. Now, for the middle class, we have forgone over $20 billion from them. Given that there are so many constraints in this budget, and relatively speaking, we cannot do as much for the middle class. I hope you can understand. They are always in my mind. Thank you. Mr. Lee Chen-keung, thank you. I think this is a budget to consolidate our strength. There are many things in the INT area to take care of our current situation and to introduce new products to catch up with the times. And I hope the government can do more in many areas and legislators will support you. Now, my concern is our population. Now, we have to attract talents, and thank you for accepting the Liberal Party's proposal on the capital investment entrance scheme. But if you don't include the mainlanders, well, they are very smart. They can always make a day tour and come to Hong Kong through another country. And is that your original intention? Now, come to our birth rate, which is at a very low point. Now, it's only 30,000 per year, 3 times less than our peak at 90,000. And so for the basic child allowance and additional child allowance, the increase is from $120,000 to $130,000. So it's only $140 per month, not even enough to cover baby formula. Do you have any policies to encourage childbirth? Because it takes 10 months for pregnancy. So can you introduce more measures to encourage childbirth among the middle class? For instance, $260,000 for the second child, and then further increase it for the third child. For the MPF scheme, many middle class people are losing money. We have the GBA development and also the Northern Metropolis. Can you allow Hong Kong people to invest in this infrastructure, in their MPF investment, so that they can all share the fruit of prosperity? On the question of the Hong Kong Jockey Club, now you saw that the accounts or the profits of the Jockey Club was quite handsome, and you have dipped into their pocket. We don't know what will happen 5 years down the road. There may be another wave of epidemic. Will you levy the Hong Kong Jockey Club more? Because they may be worried about their future planning, manpower training, and upgrade of their software and hardware, etc. They may be affected.
FS, I thank Mr. Lee for his question. We have a dropping birth rate. We don't have sufficient manpower. These constraints will limit our economic development. The government is aware of this, and we have given it an overall consideration. It's an area of work that we will focus on. The middle class would like to invest in products with a steady return. We see that there is a demand for this product, and I've tasked the right bureau to look into finding us an option or solution. For the Jockey Club, we have set the period at 5 years. We don't know what will happen afterwards. Now we charge them $2.4 billion every year for 5 years. Some think that is a lot, whereas others think it's not enough. To us, the important thing is that we will take the money and at the same time monitor the competitiveness or the amount of competition in the betting industry. A lot of people were waiting eagerly for the budget we are faced with a number of challenges in the past few years. It was a blow, an economic blow over 3 years. A lot of people talk about the betting duty in the budget. I think it's not enough. Well, we're talking about $140 billion from horse racing and $140 billion from football betting, and they have a huge reserve. You only levy $2.4 billion a year. It's only a drop in the ocean, so that is not enough, and it's only temporary. We see a few years of a budget deficit. Last year it was 140 billion. This year 54 billion in deficit. Well, we saw some abortive tenders. We have the Northern Metropolis. We have the Kaoyitao Artificial Island. A number of infrastructures in the pipeline. So where do you get the money? You issue bonds, but what if there is an increase in interest rate? Or what about a downward adjustment of the rating? All these will affect your financial position. And I'm sure that someone able will be able to overcome all these difficulties. Well, you have got $9.8 billion and $20 billion from football betting. In the past, we have the Royal Hong Kong Jockey Club. Now we have the Jockey Club. Who owns the asset? Hong Kong people? I think it's up for debate. Well, for number 388, there is $400 billion. So apart from considering the level of competition, will you split sports betting so that the Jockey Club will focus on horse racing? And then the tax amount will reduce as well. We've done a lot of work over the years in this amount. This is a huge enterprise with over $1 trillion. Will you consider that? I am an owner of a horse. I am a voting member of the Jockey Club, and I've been a member of the Jockey Club for many years. I thank Mr. Lau for his suggestions. But we would not allow a betting company to be listed. So I'm afraid I am unable to do what you asked for. Next, Mr. Chen Kin-po. This budget has taken into account the needs of economic revival after the epidemic. It helps enterprises, the people, and it has reduced the amount of giveaways to ensure soundness in our finance. I really appreciate that. And I also appreciate the hard work you put in and that of your colleagues. You reduce the progressive rate of properties, and I'm sure this is good for people who are first-time buyers. You have not reduced the demand-side measures because at the moment property prices are still high and completely out beyond the affordability of Hong Kong. It's difficult for Hong Kong property prices to rise and difficult for that to drop, and even with a drop it will quickly climb up again. And now we have the Top Talent Pass scheme, and there will be more people coming in. This will in turn drive property prices and rental level up. Have you conducted any assessment about our economic outlook? How will our property prices be affected? How do you ensure that there will be a steady rise in property prices? Well, let me supplement something in answer to Mr. Lau. Well, yes, there are casinos under an exchange, but the only legal entity in the betting business is the Hong Kong Jockey Club. We do not encourage any other form. We do not encourage the development of this industry. Say we don't ask people to come and open a casino. Last year, property prices dropped about 15%, and the transaction volume is about 45,000 units, a drop from 75,000. It was an orderly correction from the peak. The small volume of transaction last year can be interpreted as people who are rational. They will not sell in panic. And on top of that, there is an increase in interest rate, and it has not stopped yet. So people are rather cautious. You don't see developers putting a lot of units for sale, and you don't see the same from sellers. For new mortgage, the average mortgage rate is about 55%, and the repayment accounts for about 37% of their income. For various reasons, some people have defaulted for, say, over 3 months, and the number is very small. So we think that it is better for the market to develop in an orderly manner. In the future, we will continue to provide steady supply of land. Some developers have about 17 or 18,000 completed units not put up for sale. Will that have an impact on the property? Back to what I said, the transaction volume last year was rather low. From 2013 to 2020, every year there were about 60,000 units. So when interest rate becomes steady, when the financial situation similarly becomes steady, then everything will calm down. We don't have any intention to do anything in particular to change the price level. We want to maintain market order. We will maintain a steady supply. We will ensure that there is transparency and good flow of information. Mr. Teck Chi Yun, thank you. You will launch the Happy Hong Kong campaign covering gourmet, carnival, and to create a literary ambience. A lot of families suffer from financial difficulties. How happy can they be? Some members talk about the middle class not having enough to support themselves. You delivered the budget yesterday for over 2 hours, but you have not talked anything about poverty. There is not even a word about poverty alleviation in the budget. Do you recall that in the policy address, there is a mention about poverty alleviation with precision? There is a $50 million on one project, $200 million on Create Smart initiatives, and $20 million for Web3. But there's not a dime on poverty alleviation, not a dime, not a cent. Do we expect that the Poverty Alleviation Commission will be able to deliver their work by just talking? We have the Community Care Fund. Will an amount be allocated from the fund for the Poverty Alleviation Commission to carry out their work. Every time I see the FS, I say the same thing. The welfare sector object to the reduction of 1% of recurrent expenditure. It's 1% for every department. But regarding hospitals, schools, and frontline service, there is no need to meet this target. How come that for residential care homes they have to meet this 1% reduction? Is it fair? The Housing Bureau, the Development Bureau, the Labor and Welfare Bureau said that because of additional work, there will be creation of directorate posts. There is an increased workload in care homes. How come there is no increase in manpower? It's double standard. Is it fair to the welfare sector? FS, if you are unable to resolve the resource problems for us, and if you don't take away the 1% reduction in expenditure, I'm afraid I won't be able to support you. I am an official of the Hong Kong SAR. I cannot be forced to do something because of the vote. We have to set the 1% reduction in expenditure because of necessity, and it applies to all departments. We have about $200 million for the LWB, and they will make use of internal resource allocation to make that happen. We all need to work together to tie ourselves over the difficulties. For the social welfare sector, expenditure stands at $129 billion, which is the biggest of all expenditure. This year, there is an increase about over 10%. If you want to gauge whether the government cares about its people or different sectors, you can't just use a tunnel vision to focus on certain areas. We talk about aging at home, support to carers. We do our best to help everyone. There is a limited coverage in the budget. And we already said that we will give our fullest support. To be fair, over the years, regarding poverty alleviation and welfare, we have devoted a large amount of resources. Wherever possible, we do our best to take care of the underprivileged. That is our determination, that is unshaken and unwavered. And this is something that we feel as a responsible government.
Mr. Lau Kwok Fan, thank you, Chair, and I thank the Financial Secretary. I agree to the title of the budget, and I think the content also lives up to the title because different stakeholders in society have been taken care of, and then we should also bolster prosperity under one new vision. Because of the epidemic, we need new impetus for economic development. My concern is about the Kaohsiung Artificial Island as well as the Northern Metropolis. I'm happy to see that the government is putting together a preparatory office, coordination office for the Northern Metropolis. I hope that can be done as soon as possible. One sentient technopole with 150 hectares of land for INT, starting its consultation. Now my question for the Secretary is, I think industrial development in the Northern Metropolis is of utmost importance. When can we have the first batch of industries commissioned there, and how many jobs will be added in the Northern Metropolis? Now, whether we are talk about industrial development or the northern metropolis, infrastructure is most important. You're proposing a bond for infrastructure. We have proposed using different ways of fundraising for financing the northern metropolis and other infrastructure. I'm pleased to see that the government is going to issue a bond. I'd like to know the scale of the bond. What will be the value and what projects will be covered? Will you include the northern metropolis as well as Lantau tomorrow? In 2023-24, you are going to do the study. Interest rate is quite high recently. Now, if the yield of the bond is not too high, then it may not be attractive enough. So in addition to issuance of bond, will you consider public-private sector participation? I think that is a way out as well. So I'd like to know more about your bond for infrastructure. Thank you. I defer to the Deputy Secretary to talk about land and also the northern metropolis. Thank you, Mr. Lau, for your question. Yes, we must develop innovation and technology. Now we have the Hong Kong INT development blueprint will focus on life and health technology, AI, information, advanced manufacturing industries, etc. So in Centene Technopole, we will focus on these industries. Having said so, we're not saying no to other industries. Any industry that is conducive to develop Hong Kong into an international INT center, we will consider. For the first 3 blocks of buildings in the loop, they can be commissioned in late 2024, the latest. And also land formation for other area will start as soon as possible. Now for the bond for infrastructure, we will seek LegCo's approval and we will brief members on the details and also the scale. We will not rule out public-private sector collaboration. It depends on the need. Now, FS, we have 3 members waiting, and Ms. Chen Yue-Ming is number 26. Do you mind staying for a few more minutes? That's okay. After these 4, the meeting will end. Ms. or Professor Chen Wing-Kwong, thank you. I thank the FS for providing $500 million for development of Chinese medicine. Given the current financial situation, this goes to show the recognition for the Chinese medicine sector. I thank you on behalf of the sector. But DAB has asked for an expansion of outpatient services for Chinese medicine, an increase in the number of quota. I am a bit disappointed because Chinese medicine has been very useful in alleviating and treating COVID-19, and since the introduction of outpatient services of Chinese medicine, they are very popular among the public, but then the number of quota is limited. Now, this is a good policy that can benefit the public, so why don't you provide more resources to benefit more patients? In 2023-24, in healthcare, the government is going to spend $124.8 billion, down 19.2% compared with the amount last year. I understand that is because of easing of the COVID-19 epidemic. You are cutting resources, but you reserved sufficient resources for grassroots in particular to tackle long COVID issues. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Professor Chen. On expanding the service of Chinese medicine outpatient clinics, we will follow up with the relevant department. As for resources for coping with long COVID symptoms, we will consider that together as well. Ms. Zhou Fichen, I want to thank the FS for accepting the proposal from FTU to disperse consumption voucher again. Of course, we want the electronic consumption vouchers to be used for paying water charges and power tariffs, etc. I hope you can take this into account. Now, I understand that you have to contain the amount of deficit and you want to promote the economy, but then we are concerned about livelihood issues, and a member mentioned the need of the social welfare. I know there is a very minor increase of 3.3% as mentioned in para 190. I support that. I also care for healthcare services. And I think we should promote the research and development of new drugs. I know that there is mention of that in your budget so that we can have happy Hong Kong as well as healthy Hong Kong. I think deficits are cyclical and not structural. We had a similar deficit in 2003 and 04 as well. I think the impetus for supporting revival of industries is not enough. I hope you can set up special funds to do that. We have to restart the engine first. While the government has stressed that its priority is on youth work, there is only one paragraph in the policy address to mention work for the youth as para 171, youth development. Well, according to data, in the latest quarter, for those aged between 15 and 24, the unemployment rate was 6.9%, much higher than the 3.5% for the general public. For the age group 15 to 19, the unemployment rate is as high as 18.3%. We'll have over 30,000 of new blood, and they are our talents. We want to develop into the 8 important centers, and I think young people can help and find opportunities in arts sector as well. Thank you. We can reconsider the use of consumption voucher schemes. However, the original intention of the scheme is to boost consumption, and then afterwards it was expanded to cover the payment of transport fares. We have never included water charges because we think that money saved from using the consumption vouchers can be spent on paying water charges. We have some subsidy for electricity bills, and for water, every quarter there is 12 cubic meters of water free for users. Now, for different sectors, now their restart and revival should be better left to the market. While we have not introduced a restart fund, we have the SME financing guarantee scheme, and the rate is prime rate minus 2%. People may want to expand. For the transport sector, they may have to repair and maintain their vehicles and restart. If they think it viable, they can make use of the scheme. As for youth development, we very much want to do more. You mentioned the engagement in the cultural and arts industry by young people. I know many young people like that. We have resources to help arts groups, the smaller scale arts groups as well. In 1 year's budget, I specified that funding for the arts festival should be used to employ local art groups, and then they can also go to the GBA for performances with the normal boundary trouble, they can do so. Mr. Rokshan, the latest budget can both stimulate the economy and support people's livelihood, and it will also allow us to leap forward steadily. I've got a few questions. The government is going to introduce the new capital investment entrance scheme, and we also have the top talent pass scheme. The government has done a lot for attracting talents and enterprises. Now, people take 7 years to become a permanent resident. Can you shorten the period to make the whole thing more attractive? Because we don't want to be on par with other competitors or countries. We want to provide more incentives so that we are more appealing to top talents and people with assets to come and stay in Hong Kong. The second question is, in para 76 of the paper, $3 billion will be reserved for developing basic technology research so that we can attract top-notch talents and scientists to come to Hong Kong. Now, as we all know, the Western countries are suppressing and bullying our country on all fronts, and it's very difficult for the country to import high-end chips, nor can our country make them themselves. So will we consider how Hong Kong can help the country to introduce these talents and tenants and teams and also enterprises to come to Hong Kong so that they can cooperate with scientists from Hong Kong and the mainland so that they can research and develop high-end chips so that we can make a breakthrough, and then we can really give full play to our advantage under one country, two system, FS. Yes, we want to attract top talents to be our permanent residents. Now, regarding shortening the period of residency, this is a major policy. I noted your view, but I think this is going to be a controversial topic in society. And whether we should maximize our international status and our advantageous position in terms of our systems and environment, can we use such advantages to attract R&D talents to Hong Kong? I've discussed with universities, and they are doing a very good job in this regard. We have seen top-notch professors and R&D people working in our universities, and that's why we will set aside money to help R&D institutes to build this platform, to pool not just talents and experts from overseas but from the mainland as well, and they can engage in R&D activities, not just the high end but also the basic and midstream R&D activities. Now, for universities, we'll be talking about the basic technology research in making breakthroughs from scratch, and I'm sure this will be attractive, and I am optimistic about that, and we should work quickly.
Last member to speak, Ms. Chen Yu Ming. Thank you. Thank you, FS, and thank you, Chairman. I thank the FS for coming to the LegCo. You have talked about a lot on the INT and the development of the Northern Metropolis in the budget. On a number of occasions, I spoke to the FS asking whether there is any chance of combined development of the urban and rural area, and whether Hong Kong people can participate in the infrastructure development. I hope that the FS will launch more initiatives for co-development. But there are villages in the new territories with a long history, hundreds of years or over 1,000 years, and they have made sacrifice during the war of resistance. If you only make use of the land acquisition ordinance to take their land off their hands, after the land's formed and is sold at a high price, how do you expect villagers to live? How do you expect that that posterity will see the government? And the government of our country has said that development should be people-based. Would you explore more co-development opportunities in the northern metropolis? It can be like a CBD development on the mainland, that there will be plans for co-development between the urban area and the rural area, so that rural areas can share the fruit of development and can participate in the development of our city. I thank Ms. Chan for her views. I will forward her views. The northern metropolis is something in the distance. By that I mean it takes time for the development to take place. We need to find a coordinated development. Is something that we will look into. Thank you. If there are no follow-up, I thank the FS, the DFS, SFST and their team. Between the 11th and the 17th in April, there will be 21 sessions of special FC meetings to scrutinize the budget. Members may make use of the internet application system to submit questions. The deadline is midnight on the 1st of March. It's a Wednesday. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.